Arrow.net. It's about the conversation. It's about getting together and just sharing the story. ARROE.net. All right, let's do some pod crashing. Episode number 176 is with Brendan Francis Newnam from the podcast Not Lost. Brandan, how did you find enough time to sit down and quit running around the world?
Dude, I mean, you gotta flog it. Once you make it, you gotta sell it. But no, I'm parked for now. I'm in between episodes.
So now, when you elect to do this, I mean, I would love to know where your mind is when you say, you know what, I'm taking a journey, and this is where I'm going to go.
I've always been, when I was a little kid in fourth grade, they were asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, travel and write. And it's true story. It's in my yearbook. So I come by the wanderlust naturally. But as we get older, that becomes trickier. Mm-hmm. I came to a point in my career where a radio show I had ended, a relationship ended, and I was a little bit like, what am I going to do now? And I had this idea I always wanted, this where I go to towns with a friend and try to get invited to someone's house for dinner. And sure enough, a company said, all right, let's try it. And away I went. And then you're just propelled by like, I got to get this made and I got to do it.
Don't you love that about creative energy is that when something pops up inside your head and heart and when you believe in it so much that you make the leap, other people don't have to believe in it, but as long as you feel it, you're going to make it.
I've been trying to channel that as much as I can at different points in my life. And this definitely was a labor of love. But fortunately, other people, found some value in it. And here we are, which I feel very fortunate to be here.
I grew up in the state of Montana, so Bozeman, Montana is huge in my heart. And so to listen to that podcast about you being in Bozeman, what do you remember most about that city?
Oh, the fly fishing, honestly, not the city. God, yes. It was going on the periphery of the city. And I also did a wonderful hike to these waterfalls whose names I'm forgetting. Just the grandeur. Look, I live in a city and I love it. But my eyes, their whole spectrums of the color palette, I don't see for weeks. You go to Montana, it's true. The blues, the greens, the tans, it was so marvelous. So those are my big memories from Montana.
Well, and the mountains are like the big buildings in New York City in the way that you see the building, but it's going to take you a long time to get to those mountains.
Absolutely. And they also are humbling. Look, I find more than buildings in nature. We also go to Big Sur, California for an episode. It just really puts you in your place and your problems. It's kind of like really lets you like, hey, slow your roll. So you can't get a reservation at the restaurant. Big deal. Guess what? Mother Nature doesn't really care about your little problems because there's so much more going on. And that sounds like it could be make you feel bad, but it actually kind of makes you feel free and excited that, there's just so much more going on in the world than just what's in your head.
So do you walk around with an open microphone? Because, I mean, you've got sights and sounds inside this podcast, Not Lost, that it's like, wow, that wasn't set up. That's not a script. This is some real stuff.
We are rolling a lot, sometimes to the chagrin of my producers. We come back with hours and hours of tape. And so, we're always rolling. We'd be irresponsible if we didn't try to find some good talkers and know what we were going to do while we're in these towns, because we're visiting them for small windows, 2 days, 3 days tops. So we kind of pick up, we have some basic people we're going to communicate with, but then it's just running and gunning with our microphones.
So is there a city that you want to get into? I mean, that's like, I loved sitting in Carmel. And I mean, there's just something about Carmel that everybody's got a story. They're from somewhere. And really, you have to go in there as a listener.
Yeah. I was just in Carmel the last episode or penultimate episode we do in Big Sur, which is, 40 minutes from Carmel, California. But I was in Carmel. I hadn't traveled for 2 years for COVID for the most part. The show production stopped. And you know why I was in Carmel? This is a true story. I was in Carmel because we landed at SFO, woke up to go to Big Sur. I realized I did not pack any underwear. I just totally forgot. And so I'm like, where the heck? I'm on the California coastline. Where am I going to get? And I end up pulling over to Carmel. Well, let me tell you, you can't find underwear for under $50 a pair in Carmel, California, man. I have the most expensive cashmere underwear. I'm afraid to wear it. I wore it for that trip, but now it just kind of sits there like break glass in case of, I get invited to the Grammys or something.
So with this traveling, are you keeping a daily journal as well? Because, I mean, the experiences that you go through and to build these shows and these episodes.
Yeah, I definitely keep notes. Obviously, lots is recorded. Sometimes even voice memos of myself. Mm-hmm. But I keep notes, and then I also I read into before I'm arriving and after I'm leaving. I am like immersing myself in books, movies, music. I playlists for each of the towns I hit. So I try to like steep myself in the local culture there. So hopefully it'll percolate as I'm writing the episodes.
Have you ever been to a city where it's like, it didn't live up to where I wanted it to be?
It's hard for me to say that, but maybe I'm hoping that many people so I go to Portland, Maine this season. Lovely town. Don't want to knock it. But I always thought in the back of my head, I'm like, maybe I'll move there. I live in New York. Portland seems beautiful and clean, but it still seems like it's got some bookstores and food. Yeah. And it was always this plan B. And it took me going there and trying to like really inhabit it. Then I realized like, you know what, this isn't really my spot. Not Portland's fault. It's just like it's not where I need to be in my life. I'm a little bit too social, and so that Portland, Maine turned out a little differently than I thought. Still a great spot though.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about Los Angeles. I mean, I was doing everything I possibly could to make my way out to LA, and then when my daughter graduated from UCLA, like I just didn't have that vibe. It's like, okay, I like visiting this town, but I don't know if I could be in this town.
Yeah, I lived in LA for a handful of years and moved back to New York. I'm one of the few people to go that direction. It's really just what you're up for, your time in your life, your native kind of energy about things. I'm a culture vulture. Like I realize I need to be around people. That's what gives me energy. Some people, they're bad. My co-host in some episodes, Danielle, her battery drains. She bought a farm and she lives there. Even though she works on TV shows in LA, she would rather be, on her own.
Would you say that part of this, the star appeal of your podcast, Not Lost, are the real people themselves? I mean, they've not been trained. They just do life, and you're there to document it.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I think, as a radio journalist for years, I've always known the best tape or the best audio is just from my Uber drivers, my cab drivers, the people, you talk to when you're arriving in the town. And sometimes you're talking to a fancy scientist or something, and they're just giving you kind of more groomed talking points. And so this show is really about, let's go immerse ourselves with local people, and we'll talk to them about the general stuff, but then let's really try to learn about them. And the stars in this episode, I couldn't have anticipated before I went. They're just these certain characters that really captured the atmosphere. All
right, let's talk about the podcasting business side of it. When you get these authentic, real people captured on that microphone, do you have to sit there and hand them the papers? You got to sign it off. You got to give me permission to use this, because that's one of the secrets of podcasting. I like having an open microphone, but it's always that fear of somebody's going to come back and bust my butt.
Yeah, you have to. We do have people sign things. You also can get them in some states to speak into the microphone. You tell them like, hey, do I have permission to use this, and this, and they sign off that way. So we have to, we're a professional operation here. We have our I's dotted and our T's crossed. But look, this show isn't, I'm not an investigator trying to uncover some corporate malfeasance in these towns. I'm trying to get invited for a plate of Wiener Schnitzel at your house. So I feel like people, and they can Google me and know what I'm all about. And I feel like they can trust this guy, even though maybe I do wear turtlenecks and do look like a city slicker at times.
Do you like where podcasting is growing too? Because, 12 years ago when I first got into it, it was a hobby, as they kept telling me. It's just a hobby. But, man, it's become a way of life for so many.
I can't believe I've been a radio guy my whole life, and I can't believe this whole new world opened up right next to me while my career was in the middle of it. And so I'm genuinely excited about it. I used to have a radio show, and I started a podcast. Back then, I had to pretend my podcast was a radio show to get guests on it. They're like, what's a podcast? Now, by the end, when I had a radio show, I had to pretend it was a podcast to get people on it. You know what I mean? Like, people are just, publicists are focused on it. I think it's neat. It's changing like anything. But look, remember when there were only 3 TV channels in America? And we all would watch those shows. In a way, there was a cohesiveness that was kind of appealing. But man, there were so many stories that weren't told. There was so much creativity that wasn't unlocked. Well, now guess what? Just like cable came to TV, podcasts have come to radio. And I think all in all, it's a good thing.
So many people that want to get into podcasting. Because as long as you and I both have been doing this, we still bump into people that go, "Yeah, I want to start a podcast, but I don't know what I want to talk about." It's like, find it. It's all there. Yeah, I agree. The barrier to entry is lower than ever, in that probably on anybody's computer or their phone, they can record themselves, and you can probably pretty quickly go to some websites and learn how to put something together.
what differentiates you is what are you hyped about?
Yeah.
What are you interested in? You could do a podcast on standing desks, and you could find your audience of people that just want to hear about standing desks. I think that's the trick. It's not to be broad and appeal to everyone, but just to be yourself and find your own geeky kind of niche that you're into.
Have listeners responded to the pastry nun farts?
You know what? So yes, and at the episode 1 Montreal, we go to this Jean Talon market, which is this beautiful old school market, not a farmer, it's just like where the food comes. And yes, they trick me and they feed me these things, which I find out are called nuns farts, which it turns out are basically nuns would make these pastries and they had leftover dough and they would just kind of throw these little things together. And that was their kind of term for them. But man, I am a little bit Victorian. I'm like, I don't really know if I want fart jokes on my podcast, but they're like, no, you got to keep this in. So many people talk about it. I get texts, I get tweets, I get comments about, the nun farts. So thank you, sisters.
You bring up the part about being authentic and stuff like that with that radio background. Do you ever get to that point? Because I can't cuss on any of my podcasts, and I don't know if that's just the radio guy in me. I just can't release the words.
I mean, I do cuss a little bit, and I'm not proud of it, but it's a little bit. Look, I'm not only the host; I'm the driver. I am the producer. Like I'm holding my own microphone. Like it's me and a couple team members, but I am in the middle of it. And just like any travel experience anyone's had, you get to a point where you are beaten down.
Yep.
you are really at your last nerve, and you're running late. And you start to get a little salty, but we edit it. We keep in what needs to be kept in. But unfortunately, I wish it was totally clean.
What are you using for tools? Are you doing a Zoom? Because I use the L8 when I go out into public places. Because I like to go to a Panera Bread and just set up shop, and people watch you while you're talking to people they can't see.
I did for this show mostly use Zooms. We used an H6, we used an H2, depending on how many things we need. For the fly fishing scene, we used lavs because we were so far. We were different parts of the river, so we needed to be separate from each other. But mostly also a Shure shotgun mic. Different things for different scenarios. The shotgun mic in restaurants, so you can really capture people without the ambience. We have a bunch of tools in our toolkit.
So when you were doing that fly fishing up there in Montana, I mean, that takes a special art. It also, you have to learn how to move your arms and things like that, so that it's very musical. How long did it take you for you to kind of just get into that motion?
We were out there for a couple hours. I feel like I was just towards the end understanding it, and I would probably have to redo it all over again. I was also being mindful of, like, am I capturing the right tape? Are these conversations, as being a radio host, Arrow, it's like, am I getting the right tape while I'm doing this? But by the end, I let myself go a little bit, like as far as like allowing myself to learn. And I got there, I'd like to think, but it's going to take a lot more practice, man. There's no fly fishing in Brooklyn, I'll tell you that.
Did you get down to the park at all? Because I mean, the river's right there in the northern side of Yellowstone National Park. I mean, it's perfect for fly fishing. This show, we did not get to Yellowstone National Park. Years ago in my life, I was actually a waiter at Yellowstone National Park. Really?
When I dropped out of college and was living a little bit on and off in a van and in a tent with some buddies doing our little Jack Kerouac thing. And I took a job at Mammoth Hot Springs and then ended up at Old Faithful for about 4 months. Didn't fly fish then, but definitely did some wonderful camping and hiking back then.
Podcasting is like a renaissance of storytelling. Dolly Parton will always tell you that country music came from that type of storytelling. Do you feel like that this new age of storytelling is also a walk toward like a renaissance period?
I mean, I think for radio, for audio, I think it is. I think a couple things. Like one, the tools are, they're smaller, they're better, and more people can do them. So I think that can't help but bring stories that weren't getting, every story had to go through had to get greenlit because they had to go through a small funnel. Now that's wider, so better stories are coming. Mm-hmm. And then I think people are realizing, look, even if we end up with electric cars, like people need, like in modern life, there's going to be times where you need your eyes, but you don't need your ears. And so listening is not going away. People thought radio was going to die. No way. People are always going to be commuting. They're always going to be doing dishes. They're always going to be avoiding their children. And so audio is here to stay. And I think lots of smart people and interesting people are now participating. So I have high hopes for better stories in sound.
Do you still look at yourself as being a broadcaster? Because I've always had that struggle. I've had that struggle with Mark Maron. He goes, "You're a podcaster." And no, I'm a broadcaster. Don't change the rules.
I find myself all the time like messing up saying radio instead of podcasting. First of all, radio is a way better word than podcast. Let's be honest. I've been podcasting from the beginning. It is the dumbest word. It sounds like a farming method, like, did you podcast your back 40? Yeah, I did. But so I say radio a lot. Look, there's broadcast skills that you need, but yes, technically, I guess we're podcasting. But I'm agnostic. I love and listen to my local radio station and would happily go on. So, both at the end of the day, a lot of us are extroverts who want to blab and share with people. And so whatever gets our voices out there, we'll take.
Now podcasters, like for instance, like I host 14 different podcasts because my ego won't let anything go. So you've got to be working on other things as well.
Well, I wear two hats. So I work for a company called Pushkin Industries, which is Malcolm Gladwell, the writer, co-founded it. It's an audio publishing company, and I run this audio originals division. And so last year I did a big audio documentary about Paul Simon with Paul Simon. This year I'm working on one with Steve Martin.
Oh God!
So I'm executive producing those, so I'm not as in the weeds. But so yeah, I'm overseeing a bunch of neat other projects, like about half a dozen alongside this travel show. So those are things. And then my notebook is filled with some other ideas for who knows what's to come.
Yeah, because there's no program director standing in your way. It's like, hey, I'm going to do it because I can.
Yeah, the good news is you can do it. The medium news is getting funding and figuring out the time and money to do it. It takes a little fancy footwork, but it can be done.
So where can people go to find out more about everything that you are? Because, I mean, first of all, I'm blessed with the opportunity to talk to a lot of authors that travel, but it's not like your podcast because I'm hearing what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that maybe the easiest way would be go to notlostshow.com or .org, and that'll send you to the pages, the homepage. My name is too much of a mouthful to explain here. My website, BrendanFrancisNewnam.com. No one can spell Newnam, Newnam. But if you Google me, you'll find stuff about what I've done and what I'm doing.
Is there a side of your personality that would like to take a global trip, maybe to cross the borderline into Ukraine, just to kind of touch that bit of history? Because you are a storyteller.
I mean, absolutely. My mother is a Croatian. My mother's Croatian. And so I was around during, unfortunately, the last time Europe convulsed into war, and had lots of friends cover that story. And then my mother, provided aid in what small ways we could as a family. So I think bearing witness is critical.
Yeah.
And yes, it's not, I sometimes feel silly. Like, I'm joking around trying to get invited to someone's house for gumbo. Meanwhile, there's real stories unfolding. I think that's part of the dehumanizing aspect of war, is to try to devalue these other things that we do, and all of it is part of being a human and is important. But yeah, there are great storytellers there now, and maybe if the opportunity presented itself, I would join them in some way.
Dude, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
That's very generous of you. I've enjoyed this conversation. I'd love to be back.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
I'm going to do my best. Thanks so much for having me on.